move to that. I hope everyone has had recording in progress. So I will start by introducing my panelists, and I have the wonderful Kenneth Onyango, Executive Director, Commercial Banking for Equity Bank. Kenneth, you're welcome. I then have Majon Murali, MD, Airtel Uganda. Welcome. We are glad to have Amit Kapoor, Chief Commercial Officer, Airtel Uganda. If I could see you, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
We also welcome Nishant Mohan, Finance Director for Airtel Uganda. Very happy to have you. And then Robert Baldwin, Managing Director, Crested Capital. Welcome and very happy to see you. We're going to start the presentations right away. Like I said, we want to keep it short and sweet. And we will start with Equity Bank. Kenneth, tell us about Equity Bank as a secondary receiver for the IPO of Airtel.
Thank you very much, Kezia. And let me start by welcoming our partners on the call, Team Airtel, Amit and your team. Thank you so much for joining us. Crested Capital, Robert, thank you so much for joining us. And then, of course, our wonderful customers who are part of the Equity family. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, for us, we find that this is a momentous occasion in the history of this country, and also a very memorable one for us as the bank, because today there's an opportunity for our 2 million customers to convert from customers to investors of one of the leading companies in terms of telco in this country. So thank you so much, and thank you for making the opportunity to join here. I'll start by making a comment. You know, in certain things, it is good to listen to people who know. So one of the people who I believe we agree knows in terms of investment is a certain gentleman who runs a company called Berkshire Hathaway. He's the 7th richest man in the world. His fortune as at September this year is around 121 billion US dollars. And he simply said his secret to success is answering 2 questions if you're looking to invest in any company. One, do you understand that company and do you understand their business? Number 2, do you believe that that company will continue to do well in the long term? So if you think about Airtel as a company, I think many of us here know what Airtel is and what their business is. You've either made a call over Airtel or you've at least received one at the very least. You probably bought data with them or received a message from someone who was using Airtel data to text you. So you understand their business. Do you believe they'll do well in the future? Let the gentlemen speak for themselves, but I believe the firm answer you'll find is a definite yes. So our role as a bank, one is provide this platform for our customers to understand what this is about so that they can make that decision in an informed way in terms of whether they'll invest or not. And then also as a receiving bank, which we're very proud to have been appointed by Airtel as such, to after you've made your decision to invest, to assist you through the process of applying for these shares and then to receive your money. We have 50 branches spread across the entire country. All of those branches, if you walked in tomorrow or even today, they'll be able to guide you on what steps you need to take. We have our online telephone number, which is manned by 24/7 contact center. If you call in right now, or even in the middle of the night, they'll be able to take some questions and also guide you. We also have our email address and we have our social handles, and we'll share all of this information. So our key role is mainly that, to ensure that after you've made an informed decision, you've decided to invest, we'll assist you through that process and then receive the money and then ensure your shares are allocated safely. So Equity Bank, we are proud to participate in the market today. We are the 3rd largest by deposits and loans. We're recently recognized as one of the domestic systemically important banks in the country. The other day, we joined the list of primary dealers of government paper in this market. So I think we have confidence of very many customers, and we're happy that you've trusted us And at the end of this call, we hope you'll also trust in Airtel and make the right call in terms of investment, and we'll support you accordingly. Thank you, Kezia, and back to you.
Wow, thank you, Kenneth. And you have told us a lot about Equity Bank, third largest bank in the country, and all your achievements. Congratulations on that. But you said information is power, yes? And you want to help the Equity customers have information to make the correct decision, but also talked about understanding this company that we're going to invest. So let's start with giving information to our customers. I'd like to now invite our partner, Crested Capital, the managing director. Robert, come and speak to us about application and allocation of shares. Robert, I ask that you take us piece by piece, process by process, within the allocated time. Welcome, Robert, and speak to our customers.
Yes, thank you. Actually, in the presentation, there's a section that comes up. I'm not sure if we would turn the order around and we would hear first Kezia from Airtel, if that's all right. Would that be acceptable to you?
Yes, we are flexible people, so we can hear from Airtel, and I will not change my remarks. It is
yes, I will answer those.
Is power. So I would like to now invite the team from Airtel. We want to understand this company. We want to connect. We want to know who Airtel Uganda is in detail, but also talk to us about this IPO. What are the customers going to get? What must they do? But mostly, who is Airtel Uganda? I'd like to invite Mr. Murali, MD, Airtel Uganda, to speak to our customers.
Okay. Thank you, Kezia. Unfortunately, first and foremost, let me apologize on behalf of Manoj. Unfortunately, he has not been able to join the call, and I will be standing in for him, and I will take on the presentation. Before I begin, I want to introduce two key members of Airtel who are also on the call. First is Dennis Kakonge. He's sitting right next to Nishant. Dennis, if you can wave. Dennis is our legal and regulatory director. He's the one who works from the back end. And I think he is one of the big reasons why we are able to bring this entire thing to the market. So we have a lot to thank to him for being able to see through his day. Second on my right is David Birinji. He's our head of PR. He has, for some reason, been trying to sit in a place where the focus doesn't come on his face. So he's being camera shy. Normally he's not. So he's right next to me. Thank you. Lastly, let me start by first thanking Equity for setting up this entire thing for us. I also see that more than 350 people have joined. That shows the level of interest. So I think thank you to everyone who has joined. But it also shows the relationship and the trust that Equity and their customers have amongst themselves. So I must commend the Equity team for that. I think that's a very good space and happy place to be in. If we can just, Kezia, I believe you are the one who's starting the presenting. So if you can share the presentation, or do you want us to share?
You can share. We gave you the rights to.
Okay. Thank you. So I will share. So let me begin now by introducing myself. My name is Amit Kapoor. I work as a Chief Commercial Officer with Airtel Uganda. I've been in Uganda and with Airtel for the last 5 years, and a part of the journey that we are going to present to you. At the outset, to everyone, what exactly are we discussing here today, and why are we here? So we are here because Airtel has come up with a IPO, or an initial public offering, where we are offering our shares. Essentially, what we are doing is we are giving you an opportunity to invest and be a part of one of the largest industries, which is the telecom industry in Uganda. to be a part of an industry which is still underpenetrated, both as compared to the East African as well as the global standards, and therefore has a huge runway to grow. We are also giving you option to be a part of the growth story of the company, which has led the growth of the telecom market, which has been investing ahead of the curve, and is the fastest growing telecom company in Uganda in the last 5 years at a CAGR level. It's also one of the largest corporate taxpayers and one of the most consistently profitable, and a company with an extremely strong cash flow and a balance sheet. So that is, in summary, is what we're offering. When you buy shares, you become part owners of our company, and therefore you are able to participate and get the fruits of the growth of the company and the industry. A quick summary of it: the shares we are offering represent 20% of the share capital of Airtel Uganda. So Airtel Uganda is the company that does the telecom part of the business. Okay. So at the outside, and I know there will be a lot of questions, let me address. Airtel Money is not a part of Airtel Uganda. It is run by a separate company altogether, which is called Airtel Mobile Commerce Uganda Limited. It's a company which was registered in 2011, and it's a business which was put under that money license, or the license under National Payment System Act, in part because of the regulation where these two businesses have to be handled at an arm's length business and in two entities. That is one. Second, as a long-term strategy of Airtel Africa, we have kept the telecom and the mobile money businesses separately across all the operations that Airtel does in Africa. And that company has a separate board. It has a separate set of investors, including the minority investors, including companies like MasterCard. So it's a separate company and a separate undertaking of. So everything we are going to talk to you about is about our telecom part of the business. Okay. A quick rundown of what is Airtel Uganda. Okay. So our lineage is on two parts. One is within Uganda. So within Uganda, we trace ourselves to the launch of the first mobile network in Uganda by Celtel in 1995. Okay. Celtel was taken over by Zain, and Zain was taken over by Airtel Uganda, and we entered in 2010. There was also a company called Warid, and we merged Warid with ourselves in 2011 and came into the current avatar of Airtel Uganda as a holistic company. So it's a merger of it was of Zain and Warid, both of them bought over by Airtel Uganda. So we have been in this present avatar since 2011. Okay. And I'm sure there will be, I have heard a lot, I have met actually a lot of people, and I'm sure there will be people on this call who will have stories about how they bought their first phone, or they're amongst the first few customers to have taken from Celtel, including when the phones used to come in some $1,000 or something. So we have come a long way from that. But a lot of those customers have stayed with us, and we are very grateful to them. At a global level, Airtel Uganda is part of Bharti Airtel. Bharti Airtel is the second largest telecom operation across the world. Within Africa, Airtel Uganda is a part of a company called Airtel Africa PLC Limited. Airtel Africa is a company which is listed on the London Stock Exchange. So we are part of a global giant, which gives us a huge advantages in terms of cross-pollination of learnings, in terms of building longer-term relationships with our suppliers, and therefore getting an advantage of that into our business. So that is one part. At the same time, our listings on multiple exchanges like London Stock Exchange, Nigerian Stock Exchange, have also built in a culture of a strong corporate governance, and therefore we do have a tendency to take care of all our stakeholders. So we're a very open, transparent, and a solid company to that extent. One of the reasons for launching this IPO, okay, which I missed here, which is 8 billion shares, each share price at 100 shilling, a total of 800 billion or USD 216 million. That represents 20% of our entire capital. APSA has been the lead transaction advisor, and Crested, who's represented here, is the lead sponsoring broker. So coming to why we are listing, so one of the guidelines for us to get our revised telecom license when we got in 2020, which have been extended 2021 or 20, which was extended for 20 years, was that we have to list 20% of our company on the Ugandan stock exchange. But that is only one reason. The other thing is, I think we have in the last 12 years or 13 years that we have been present, shown a huge commitment to the Ugandan market. We have been the company which has invested ahead of its curve. So for example, in 2019, we became the first company to make our network 100% 4G. It was a feat which was not matched for 4 years in the Ugandan market. And by some calculation, we might be the first one outside of South Africa in the entire sub-Saharan Africa, the first single country operator to have done that. Okay. We have built a strong financial and operational performance. I will just take you through that in the next few slides. And therefore, we are in a position where we think we can bring in or we do believe that we have brought in a strong proposition for our investors to come and participate in that. Going forward, a very quick snapshot in terms of how our revenues are going. Okay. So in 2018, we had a revenue of over $1 trillion, UGX 1 trillion. In 2022, in 5 years, we moved that to almost 1.6 trillion. That gives us a CAGR of over 12%. Data contributes to 35% of our revenue. Voice contributes to 57% of our revenue. Now, if you look at the data business, we grew from 363 billion to 554 billion. And data is, as a lot of people would have heard, data is the future of telecom. Data, in many manners, is also said to be the new oil. But yes, data is the future. So data has been growing. And during this time period, we have taken market leadership in the data business. So which is the future of the telecom? We are the market leaders. At a consolidated level, we are 49% revenue market share in Uganda. But in data, we believe we are the biggest. But during this time period, voice has also continued to grow. And one reason why voice is growing is because Uganda is still an under-penetrated market when it comes to telecom, which means the number of people who have access to mobile phones is still lower as compared to East African average or as compared to the global average. So every year, more and more people are entering this industry. And not only because the current people are entering, but also because it's one of the fastest growing population on the planet. And new people who are reaching that age or the kids who are growing up are also entering. So as they enter, they start building up the voice for the voice also. So while data will take off in the future, it has taken off in the future, but voice also has a very strong growth story in Uganda. But businesses are not run and sustained only on revenues. So businesses are run and sustained on profits. So when you look at our profitability at a base level of an EBITDA, we were at 558 billion in 2018, and we reached 888 billion in 2022. So all the while we have maintained or grown our EBITDA at 12%. During this period, we have also been adding between 200 to 300 sites on an average every year. So we have been investing, we have been putting our capex, we have been building up more OPEX cost by adding of those sites, but we have managed to maintain our EBITDA growth. Okay, so we have managed to balance our investments with our revenues as well as with our profitability. If you look at our overall net profit, we moved from 268 to 326 billion. There was a drop last year, primarily because as we came out of the COVID-led boom in the overall business. If you look at our balance sheet, we have a very strong balance sheet with almost 2 billion assets. Our liabilities are mostly for the short term. If you read our prospectus, and we will encourage you to read our prospectus, we have very limited long-term debt, and most of that is coming and will be exhausted by 2025. So we have a strong balance sheet, growing profitability on both growing revenues as well as growing profits. So that gives us a sustainable business and therefore an ability to invest and grow for the future. Now, what exactly are we offering? I'm coming back to the share. So each share, as you know, is priced at 100. What you saw till the last slide was the actual revenues as reported by the company till December 2020. But what we are projecting is that in December 2023, in the financial year 2023, we will grow our revenues further to UGX 1.86 trillion or almost $500 million. EBITDA will cross 1 trillion and be 1.06 trillion with a net profit of 457 billion. Okay. So we are building up our company and we think that we'll continue to project our growth. Another advantage of investing right now is that you get incentive shares. So we have incentive shares right from the lowest slab. I'll come to that detail in the next. Another retail investor, you can get between 5 to 20 shares per 100. As a professional investor, you can get between 0 to 37.5 shares per 100, depending on where you invest. The principle being more for more. The more you invest, the more incentive that you get. Another advantage of investing now is that if you invest now and you will be allocated shares by 30th of October, you will be eligible for earning the Q3 dividends, which will be paid out sometime in November and December. November or December. And we have a stated dividend policy that we will pay a dividend of between 95% of our retained earnings or our net profit after tax, whichever is higher. Now, over the past few years, while we have been investing, while we've been growing, while we became the first one to make our network 100% 4G across, or the fact that we became the first network to launch 5G services in Uganda 2 months back, all during that time period, while we have been investing and growing, our dividend payout ratio has been 87%. So we have been able to maintain a high dividend payout while maintaining our investments and investing for the future growth of the company. If you look at the timelines, we started this offer on 30th of August. This offer will close on 13th of October, which means you can make your application or you can put in your application up to 13th of October. The allotment of the allocation results will happen by 30th of October, and we will be listing and ringing the bell on 31st October, which means you will be able to trade starting 31st October. In case of oversubscriptions, whatever additional funds have to be returned will also start by 31st of October. Now, I had mentioned earlier that you get incentive shares. So let me explain the incentive shares. So if you're a retail investor and you apply the minimum, so the minimum that you can apply for is 2,500 shares, which means an application size of 250,000. So if you apply between 250,000 to 18.5 million shares, you get 5 incentive shares per 100. So for every 100 that you have applied for, you get 105. That takes your offer pricing down to 95.24. And this is for the basic investor. So even if you do the basic minimum application, you still get this incentive. If you run this application through Airtel Money and you're in the same slab, instead of 5, you get 6 incentive shares. So you get 1 additional, taking your pricing down to 94.34. If you apply between 18.5 million to 37 million, you get 10 incentive shares or 10% more shares, taking your pricing down to 90.91. But if you cross 37 million shares and you apply in the highest retail slab, you can get 20 incentive shares per 100, which takes your pricing down to 83.33. Now, a quick snapshot in terms of the app, in terms of how this has been calculated. So if I look at the left side, the investor who's doing the absolute minimum, 250,000, offer price is 100, number of shares that you apply is 2,500, but you get 125 incentive shares. So when you will be allocated those shares on 30th October, you will get in your account 2625 shares. So if you take 250,000 divide by 2625, you get 95.24. Now, if you're on the higher slab, and I'm sure equity has a lot of customers, including some, I'm sure some employees of equity who can definitely be on the right side. That is, and if you do an investment of 4 billion, you are applying for 40 million shares. Your incentive shares will be 20% or 8 million. That gives you 48 million in terms of the number of shares that you have applied for, that in the number of shares that you get, taking your effective offer pricing to 83.33. So that is in terms of financials, in terms of what is it that we are offering and what are the incentives. But any equity investment is definitely subject to risk. Okay? And equity is considered to be one of the best investment classes, but it is also a riskier investment classes. So we will strongly encourage each and every one of you and everyone who's trying or who's planning to invest to please read our prospectus. So if you go to airtel.co.ug/IPO, you can download both the detailed and the abridged version of our prospectus. And on section 8, we list down all the different risks. Now, for example, we have put up 4 or 5 of those risks here on the screen. One of them, for example, is in competition from traditional, non-traditional players, right? Which is existing players or somebody new like Starlink, etc. But what we believe, or as a part of our risk mitigation, that a customer finally goes where the best proposition is available. And we, with our network, with our ability to reach everyone, not only in terms of network, but we have what we believe, if not the largest, definitely one of the largest distribution networks across the country. That means a customer can access Airtel services, can get their recharges, can get their bundles at any location across the country. Okay. So those links plus our product, our understanding of the market gives definitely an edge to mitigate that risk. There is also concern that voice in the long term will decline. So globally, as markets have moved, the business have moved to data. So if you go to some of the countries, say in India or Western countries or Australia or any of those markets, what you pay for is data and voice comes in free. Okay. But what happens is that in Uganda, as I explained, we are still at a nascent stage in development of the overall industry. So there's a runway to grow for the voice also. And by the time we reach a stage where people fully transition to smartphones and to data, by that time, data revenues would have taken over from voice, and we should be able to mitigate those risks. Similarly, there's a SIM box or a credit risk. And the last one, which I will definitely reiterate, share prices are subject to fluctuation, and they depend on the trading environment and the overall context, and not only sometimes reflect the true value or the intrinsic value of the product that you are holding. Okay, so again, lastly, please read the section 8 in our prospectus, understand these risks, and then make a conscious decision. Okay, I will now hand it over to Robert from Crested to take us through how you can invest going forward. So, Robert, well.
Thank you, and thank you, Kezia. You gave me such a great introduction, and thank you for that. So I hope we have that energy. And Amit, thank you so much. That was a really great presentation from where I'm sitting. I hope for all the 300 plus people on the call, you also are feeling the information, learning about Airtel. So let me help you with the idea of how to invest. So we've now heard about the business, and there's 2 main channels for how to invest. I'll go through this one briefly, which is through the Airtel Money platform. You must have an Airtel number. And this is for individuals who wish to invest, who are Ugandans. It is required to have a NIN, a national ID number. So you must have a NIN to participate through the phone. You dial *185 *85 hash and follow the prompts to first open an SCD account. The SCD account is an account that holds your shares. It's not an equity bank account, Kezia. It's an account that holds your shares because they must be held. They're held at the Uganda Securities Exchange. So it'll be your account at the stock exchange. You create that, and it's tied to your NIN. Once you've done that, you then can participate in the IPO, applying for the IPO shares with the different incentive shares using Airtel Money. There's 1 additional incentive share on top of the 5 that retail investors get. And you would go through the same platform, *185 *85 hash, and then apply for your IPO shares. At some point in the process, you must pick a broker. On the next slide, we talk about the different brokers and the receiving banks. We, of course, would encourage you to choose Crested Capital, but you have a free choice of broker up to yourself. Maybe you can move to the next slide, Kezia. Or sorry, David. I think, David, you're controlling the slide. So these are the receiving banks. We really, right in the middle, you have Equity Bank. We appreciate you. We appreciate your effort of putting this together today. And that means receiving bank at Equity. You can put in your application money, the money you're using to purchase these shares for the Airtel IPO. If you have questions, obviously we're working through the call. It's a lunch hour, and hopefully we're keeping your attention. But if you have questions, after this, we'll have a session, I believe, on Q&A, but you can also contact the brokers who are listed below Crested Capital, all 5 brokers who are members of the Uganda Securities Exchange, and all of us can help you participate in the offer. So I would really encourage you, investors, this is an opportunity to take up shares in Airtel Uganda. Thank you very much. I'll maybe hand back to you, Kezia, for Q&A.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Amit from Airtel and then Robert from Crested Capital for giving us information, because Kenneth from Equity told us information is power, and we wanted to understand this company that we're investing in. I picked a couple of important numbers and important dates. The first number I picked was every share is 100 Uganda shillings. Airtel is offering 20% of their strong balance sheet, and the shares that are available are 8 billion shares. Yes, I just need Nishant to nod, and I know I am correct. I am saying the correct things. Yes, those were the key numbers that I picked. But I picked key dates. So numbers and dates. Dates is that we close, or the IPO closes 13th October, and then we are going to ring the bell. And I hope it is an actual bell on the 31st of October, when Airtel will be listed and we will all become shareholders. I just want to tell you, gentlemen, I know what I will be doing this weekend. I will log on to Airtel Uganda website, download the prospectus, and look for Section 8, because that is also some information that we got. We have had a code, an important code, *185 *85 hash. That is a very important code, and we follow the prompts. All this information you can get by having data from Airtel and then going to the Airtel website, Equity website, and Crested Capital website. I hope I have guided, and we are seeing all this information in the chat. The technical team is working on that. Now, gentlemen, a couple of questions, and I will read 5 questions and hope that we can take them. I'm not going in any particular order, but the first question I have is it possible for me to buy shares without an Airtel number? How do I get the shares on Airtel? I believe you've explained, but please tell us again. But one for you, Robert. What is an IPO? And I apologize, customers, for using the word IPO. We should have told you what it is. I have a ready shareholder here who is asking, apart from dividends, what else do I gain as a shareholder? And then question number 5, does Airtel's interest in picking money mean there are existing opportunities in the communication space? So I do not know who will go first, Amit, and then Robert. Over to you.
So the first 2 questions are related to how to apply. I will request Robert to please take them on.
Sure, thanks, Amit. And also, Kezia, there is an actual bell on listing day. It's a very cool bell. It goes off, and we signify the beginning of the trading of a new company with that at the stock exchange. So please anticipate that on the 31st of October. So the first question is, without an Airtel number, absolutely. Someone without an Airtel number, I'll put it in the chat. You can either visit one of the brokers, or you can visit the USE website, which is the Securities Central Depository website. I had put it earlier in the chat, but because of the number of people, it may have moved up. It's the USE website that allows you to apply for shares. So you're not restricted to it's not restricted to Airtel numbers. Of course, we would encourage you, I'm sure Amit would encourage you to get an Airtel line if you don't have one, but it's not a restriction. Next one is, what is an IPO? Good question, and we should have started with that, and apologies to members of the call. IPO stands for Initial Public Offer. Initial Public Offer. And it is the first time that a company, we use this when a company comes to the market for the first time. So in this case, Airtel will be joining 10 other companies, Ugandan companies on the stock exchange. So it will become the 11th company here that have done IPOs in the Ugandan market. Let's see. I think maybe back to you, Amit, for the next one.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. So let me address the question coming, does it mean that there are opportunities in the communication sector? Okay. So as Airtel Uganda, we are a fierce or strong believer in the Ugandan economy and the potential of the telecommunication sector to grow in Uganda, both in the short term as well as in the long term. Okay? And that is why we have been fully committed to this market and we have invested, sometimes invested ahead of the curve. For example, when we made our network 100% 4G in 2019, there were very limited 4G phones in the country, but our network possibly drove the shift to both the smartphone penetration and for an upgrade from 3G to 4G. So we are strong believers and we do believe, and we will continue to invest. We made our network the first 5G network in Uganda, the first one to launch. We also brought in electronic SIM or eSIM, which means you do not have to use a physical SIM. So if your phone is compatible, you just have it like a software on your phone. We're also the only ones to, first and the only ones to give voice over LTE voltage services, where your voice is not taken on the standard 2G network, but is converted into a data and carried over the 4G network. So that really elevates your experience. So we are committed and we think there are enough and more opportunities in the communication sector. But coming specifically to this IPO, the shares are being sold by the existing investor. So the shares are not being issued new. So that money is going to the existing shareholder or the investor and is not being used for the investment in the market. But we have a strong balance sheet. We are very strong in terms of the cash profits. And Nishant, who's there on the call, can just accentuate what I'm saying and talk in terms of our cash profits. And that gives us the ability to invest and continue to grow this industry and to take up more than a fair share of our growth of the industry.
Thanks, Amit. So thanks for joining, everyone. We have been investing steadily over last 5 years, and approximately we have been adding 200 plus sites every year. So investment wise, we have been investing before the time, as stated by Amit. Our profitability is consistently growing over last 4 years, and our EBITDA margin, which is that profitability margin, is above 50% range, and we have delivered 56% in 2022. And we have been paying continuous dividend to our shareholders, and our dividend policy is 95% of retained earnings or profit after tax, whichever is higher. So as stated by Amit, we are taking care of our debt leverage ratio very carefully. And we also, our free cash flow is good enough to support the future capex investments and continuous return to the shareholders in form of dividend. Thank you. Back to Amit.
So back to Kiza for the next question, and we can start. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a couple of investors. They are not in the country. Speak to us about people who are not in the country, because I have one in Dubai and another one who states how do they do that? How do they participate? I have one about how long, I believe this one is for you, Robert, does it take to resell the shares? And then one for Equity Bank, Kenneth. How many shares can I buy if I don't have, and if I don't have money, what can they do? Yes, let's take one last one. And I believe this one you have answered, Nishant, that how can you assure us of profit making? So we'll take another one. What is the minimum I can start with? And how are we paying or depositing for the shares? So I'm going to ask Kenneth, let us hear your voice. And we start with you and then go to Robert, and we shall end with Airtel, just to re-echo everything that you've been saying.
Thank you very much, Kezia, for that question. I hope you can hear me clearly. So that is a good one for our customers, and that is our strength. For those of you that have taken interest and want to invest, but maybe you don't have cash on hand, but you have cash flow. That is what the bank is there for. We are going to stand with you. We're able to provide credit, which will match the kind of business that you are in. My suggestion would be our contacts were shared on the screen, but you can call our contact center number 0312-327-000, or reply to our, or send an email to our email address, or reach us on our socials, and we'll come to you in terms of how you can actually access credit and then finance what you need to. But maybe just to put it plainly, the numbers Kezia gave were 100 shillings per share. The 8 billion shares that are being offered, that is about 800 billion. And I can state to that fear of favor, that number is just over $200 million. Equity is able to lend up to $300 million to a single borrower. So even if one person here wants to take everything, the bank can cover you. But we lend from as low as 500,000 shillings. You can do that on phone. You can come into the branch, whatever it is that you prefer, we can finance you. So do not worry about it. Money will not be an issue. If you're convinced, please reach out and we'll manage that gap for you. Thank you, Kezia, and back to you.
Yes,
Thanks,
Robert?
Nikki. Should I go next? I have a few, and I'm seeing the quick answers for those abroad, because it is there may be some more questions. They should contact, obviously we put Crested's contacts, but contact one of the brokers, or you can go through the SCD online method. But I would say reach out to one of the brokers with an email. How long to sell the shares? Of course, after the IPO, the shares will be in the stock exchange listed. The company will be listed at the stock exchange. So the market forces are applying. So depending on obviously pricing, you would be able to sell the shares. But normally the settlement cycle is 3 days. So if you put in an order to sell and your price is matching the market, meaning that there's a buyer matching your price, it takes 3 days and you receive your funds on the 4th day. I think third day, the funds come to the brokers, and on the 4th day we settle you. Someone asked about allocation policy. Ugandans are given priority for this. This is a Ugandan listing. The Ugandan investors will take priority first in the case of an oversubscription, and only after that would others be given an allocation. I saw that question. Someone asked about how to deposit. I know bankers, you love to receive deposits. You also are very convenient and easy ways to receive. And there's an IPO account number that's listed at Equity Bank for those who want to deposit. I must encourage you, if you deposit money into Equity Bank for the IPO, you must include a phone number and a contact and mention that you're bringing the money for the IPO, so that we're able to trace that purchase. Because just putting money is not enough. You must have an SCD account and you must have an application. So all three have to happen. But again, there are people who can reach out. You can reach out to and help to get the further information on how to do those three processes. I'm trying to see if I've missed anything. Let's see, how to deposit. The minimum purchase is 2,500 shares. And at 100 shillings per share, that's a participation of 250,000, which matches the, Equity has said that up to, minimum is 500,000 for the facility. So that's within that amount. You could do that at 250,000 to have a minimum purchase. And I don't know if I missed others that you gave.
No, we're good, and I can tell we have about 6 minutes to go. So I will not repeat the questions that have been answered. I believe one that is important, Robert, is what if I opened a Uganda Securities Exchange account 10 years ago? It may be dormant. How do I get it so that I can buy the shares? And then the last one is, can I buy
Can you hear me?
using
Yeah.
Airtel money? Just those two before we move to the next set.
Sorry, Kezia, I heard only the one. I was breaking a little bit.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I heard only the one about 10 years ago. What was the second question?
Can I buy shares using Airtel Money? And I believe this one, we can repeat the incentive.
Correct.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Kezia,
Go
Robert,
ahead. Go ahead.
before you come in, there's also another question I just read in the chat, which you may cover. It says, what is the proof or the document that I will have that I own the shares? So when you're answering, please cover that also. Thank you.
Sure, will do. I think the channel, I'm sorry, I put off my video because of my bandwidth. The channel for participating through the Airtel Money provides six incentive shares. It's one additional incentive share by going through Airtel Money, which is *185 *85#. So that answers the question. The other question, sorry, because yeah, I wrote it, but missed the second one.
The question about if someone had a
10
Uganda
years ago.
Securities
Right.
account.
So look, I think if they can reach out to their broker or they can reach out to the securities exchange, if they have that number, then it certainly can be, they can be, they're not like bank accounts, they don't go inactive. There will be a record of that account. If your broker is no longer there, if you had a broker many years ago, then please do reach out to the exchange or reach out to Crested and we'll be able to help you to run that down. Thanks.
Robert, if you can answer, what is the proof that an investor will have that they have the shares?
The proof, yeah, sure. So as you open an SCD account, the process of opening an SCD account requires that you provide an email address. And as you do that, you will receive a notification from the registrar that you have made an application. The USE will send a notification. If it's on your phone, you will receive a text message that you've made an application for the shares. So you will receive an electronic notification for that, which will enable you to show the proof of the application. Remember that it's just an application, that depending on the number of shares which are applied for, then there will be an allotment, which means that if there's an oversubscription, there will be a proportional allotment given to shareholders, and then that comes out on the 30th of October. So if you receive all the shares that you apply for, and we think in most cases, most Ugandan retail investors will receive their allotment, but we have to wait and see the total uptake, that you'll be able to get a notification of your shares, and the allotment results come out on the 30th of October. So you'll receive that electronically.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we've answered most of the questions from the ones that I'm getting from my team. Very important. Where do you find this information? As we come to an end, I have 2 minutes to go. Where do you find this information? I'm going to give my panelists one more chance to tell us what is the important information in 1 minute, and where do we find this information? I'll also like to take note of the comments and the questions coming, particularly for the bank. Our technical team is looking at them and will reach out to you and answer them. So in no particular order, I am going to ask to start with Airtel, the reason we are here. Where do I find this information? What is the important thing that I should take away from here as a customer?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so Kezia, I will address that point very quickly. There are multiple ways you can get this information, and what we will do is, and we will requesting through this to Kezia, for anybody who had joined this, would it be possible for you to share the recording, the presentation that we made, as well as our prospectus? So you can hear the recording again. I think there's a lot of information that you will get from there. You can also get it from the prospectus, as well as from the presentation that we are going to share with you. So that is one part. We are also putting the prospectus on the chat right now. As I speak, David is in the process of doing it. So you can please download it from there and use that to check for or to read any information. Lastly, there are two more channels. One is you can go to airtel.co.ug, that is our website /IPO, and you can download this information. We will keep everything updated over there. That is one part. Second, please reach out to our partners, Crested, APSA, Equity, any of the banks as well as any of the brokers, and they will be able to share. I'll request Robert to put the details of the Crested here, and David will put in the contact details of the Airtel team so that you can reach out to any one of us at any point of time, and we will be happy to provide you with all the information. In a nutshell, we are giving you a fantastic opportunity, at least what we believe. We brought in a strong proposition for you to be a part of the growth story of Airtel Uganda, and it will be our pleasure to see a lot of you on the list of our shareholders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Team Airtel. I'll now move to Robert.
Sure.
What would you like us to know and contacts?
Thank you. I've shared contacts in the chat for our offices are in Impala House, opposite KCCA, in town, Crested Capital on the ground floor, and our contact details are there. But what I would like the audience to take away, and I think we're still at over almost 300 people, is that look, shares are an investment, and you started this chat talking about shares as an investment, and others have mentioned that investing, Ugandans are good investors. Ugandans are entrepreneurs, and they invest in things like salons or let's say taxi or boda boda or other small businesses. But there are a lot of hassles involved with that, and certainly there are risks involved with those types of businesses. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but as another way of investing and putting your money where you will have the wonderful team from Airtel who's introduced themselves today, they will be working for you. That's another way to look at your investment, because that you're joining a listed company. It has a lot of corporate standards. It's a very large company that's growing and ambitious in Uganda. So I would say to you entrepreneurs, you could consider an investment in Airtel, as it's a very, very strong company. And it's a good way when you own shares to have an investment that goes into the long term. So it's giving you a long-term investment benefit. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert, for allowing us to invest for our grandchildren. Kenneth, as a receiving bank, tell us, what do we do? Where do we put our money? And how are you helping us with this?
Yeah, thank you, Kezia, for a job very well done. And thank you to the Airtel team and Crested Capital for joining us on this call. And of course, thank you so much, our wonderful customers, all 300, almost 400 of you. And I hope you'll carry the message that you've had here today far and wide to those that you know, your friends and family and your loved ones. Nobody should miss out on this. I think as I wrap up, one, to reflect on the earlier two questions that I asked. Do you understand Airtel and the business that Airtel does? I think the answer to that question is yes. Do you believe Airtel will continue to perform well in the long run? I think the answer to that question also is a firm yes. The last one may be, where do I get money? I'm interested, but I don't have money. Please reach out to Equity Bank. Contacts are in the chat, but you can call the contact center number 0312-327-000. We'll provide you with the funding that you require to make this investment. Do not miss out. And also, lastly, we are officially a receiving bank, so you don't have to struggle. Once you make up your mind, visit any of our branches or reach out on those contact numbers and we'll take you through the process. You apply, you deposit the money with us, and hopefully you'll have that allocation with you. And then you'll start your journey on converting from customer to investor. May I congratulate you in advance. Thank you for logging in, and I wish you a very good day. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful. So future shareholders, I hope this weekend you spend some time with a prospectus. It has been put in the chat. Download it, keep it with you, make that decision. We have guided, we have contacts, we've given you help, we've given you information. Please make the decision, make an investment for your children and your grandchildren so that we can build Uganda together. Thank you very much. We shall share all this information on the socials, in the different places that we need. We can find website for Airtel, Crested Capital, and Equity Bank Uganda. I want to wish you a happy weekend, a happy week, and enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much. Asimwe Dorothy Kezia for God and my country.
Thank you so much.